one. Okay, everybody, welcome to today's training. Today, we're going to go over high school equivalency and practice test, which then hopefully will lead to credentialing. So we're going to go over both of those sections in Alaska Jobs. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll get started. Oh no, oh, I closed it. So that was fun for me. See, I told you today has been that kind of day. So apparently we're going to get to see the steps for walking through on how to get back on once you close it. So let's do that. So I'm going to go to my Google and I have the training site. Remember, mine's all on the training. So I don't think you guys see, when you guys get onto your My Alaska, do you guys see the section that says DOL staff versus grantee staff? Do you have to still go through that, or does it just take you right into this first logon page, or does it just take you right into it?
For me, this is Gary. It's grantee staff.
It is grantee staff, okay. In the training site, it's just staff, so we don't have an option. It doesn't take you to the username and password, right? That just takes you right into the VOS system, correct?
Correct. I noticed when it's not working, it takes us to this site.
When it's not working, yes. But when it's working properly, you should choose grantee and then it takes you correctly right in. Okay, so now that we're in, let's look at, we're going to go back to the same person we've been using this whole time. And so we're going to go to Carol. And since I've already been assisting her for a long time, she's on my save list. If I didn't have her on my save list, I could find her several different ways by either going to the quick search and putting Danvers in here, and it will bring her up here and I can click on her there. Or I can go down to my manage individuals and I could search that way. But since I've already been helping her, I'm just going to click here and we're going to go find her that way. So I just want to remind you again that we're in VOS training system. And so sometimes it takes a bit to kind of get moving in here. It's like greasing the wheels. Sometimes they get stuck a little bit and we have to throw some grease on there. Everything that we do is in programs, except for if we're managing adult ed or going to reports. But if we're managing the individual, everything that we do is in the programs tab. So we're going to go to programs. We're going to go down and we're in that same completed application. So we're going to hit the plus sign to open that up. And then for today's demonstration, for today's training, we're going to go to the high school equivalency and practice test. So we're going to start there. Remember on the last training, we went through assessments. So we've already tabbed this person. We did go through the TABE. It would be the same if we had an ESL assessment, but in this case, we did a TABE assessment. So if you needed to look at that, you could open it back up and it'll show you those assessments are already there. But this time, for us, we're going to go through and do a GED test and a GED practice test. So we always start with creating, and we're going to go to this link right here and create our practice test and or our GED test. So down here under this HSE, high school equivalency summary, we're going to add a new test information. So you would click on that link and it's going to open up the test information. So there's several different publishers. Remember that our system works with different states. So they've added all the publishers that could be possible in there, including HiSET and GED, or they haven't got TASC in there because no other state works with TASC, but HiSET and GED is in there. So GED, which is what we're going to select. We're going to start with a GED practice test. So we're going to take a practice in the subject area. Let's do science. So we're going to do a science test, put in a score. Do we want to pass or not pass this person on the first try? Remember, this is just practice.
Not pass.
Not pass this person. So we're going to give them a 134. And then for the test date, we backed it all the way back up to August, but let's just say 10/13. And let's save that information. And it's going to take that test score and it's going to tell you how they performed on that particular test. So if you go down, once you get that test score in, it's going to tell you that it is too close to call on this test. So at 134, remember the label, the results on 134 is too close to call. So that's what it's going to tell you on this particular science question or science section. But let's put in another practice test and let's see what it says. So the summary is already there because we've already given them this test. Remember, we're going to keep it as a GED because we do not have high set. So please don't put a high set in there. What happens if you do put in a high set score on accident?
Call you or Donna to fix it?
Victor, you let Donna know. Donna will get it fixed.
Okay.
So, but that is absolutely right. You either call Donna or myself to fix it. So GED practice, let's do math this time. And this time, let's have them go at let's just say they have 150 in math. And their test date, let's pick the same date. Let's say they did that on the same date. And again, that's all the information you need, and we're going to save it. So if we save that information, now they're likely to pass. So as soon as they hit that 145, they're going to be likely to pass. Anything below that, they're too close to call. So, and that's what the practice test. Any questions on the practice test before we put in a real test? Cool.
What is the view part on the action?
Sure. So you can go in there and view it, and what it's going to do is it's going to show you that particular test, and you cannot change anything on there. And it says on here that you can change the score and the date, but on the real site you cannot. If you need to change one of those scores, you would have to get a hold of Donna in order to change it. Say that it was a 134 and you were like, oh no, it was supposed to be a 143, that I accidentally put in the wrong number. I had a moment, my fingers typed too fast, and then I pushed save. That would be something that Donna or I would have to change or have changed, because you can put scores in, but once they're in, they're in. So that's one of those privileged things, but you can always view it. That's a really good question. So in this case, we're going to go in, we're going to add an actual GED. This time it's an official exam. And let's start with reasoning. And reasoning score, we're going to give them a passing score. And they, let's just say they barely passed this one at a 147. And they passed this one on the same day. And we're going to save it. And you can see that they changed from likely to pass. Oh, where'd it go? Okay, let's try it again. Maybe it's because it changed the official exam. Oh, I did something magic, because that was a GED practice and now it's an official exam. Whoops. Okay, so you can't do that in the real site, but apparently you can do that here. But but Donna and I can change if you accidentally put in official and you meant to put practice, or if you put in a practice and you meant to put an official. So that's how that works when we have to change it in the background. So that was the reasoning. It went in at a 147, and you can see that is passing high school equivalency. So there's their official score. And I'm going to put all 4 tests in here. So this time it is an official test, and now they've taken, let's say that was reasoning, they've taken the math, and let's go a 160. And they did so, let's say they did it today and save that information. Passing on there, and let's get the 3rd one in there. Official. Let's go science. Let's go 165 is the cutoff for the other one. I want to say, am I right there? Anybody? Where it goes from passing to college ready? Is it 165? It is college ready at 165. And then I think it's 175 at college ready plus, right? Anybody tell me?
I think that's correct.
It's 175, right? 175. Let's say it's today. And save. And college ready plus, yeah. So you can see that they've got the right labels in here, right, too. So if you put in the score, it's going to give you whether they're likely to pass, whether they're too close to call. And then when they're passing the official exam, whether they're passing it, whether they have a college ready or a college ready plus credit. That goes the same with if they have failed it. So if I put in one that, let's say they took the social studies, and let's say they've got a 140, the first time out on 1013, it will say that it failed. Below passing. So you can see that it stacks these. It stacks it in the order that you put it in, not in the test date. So be careful with that. It's all by the order that you put it in. And then that is as easy as that. You can print a verification form, and I wonder if it will do it for me. We'll try it. And if you have to get this over to, this is not an official transcript. This is just a verification form stating that the student, and this still says HiSET because it's in the test environment, but they have taken the practice test, that it's not guaranteed that they're going to pass it, but they've taken the official practice test and they need to complete, they need to complete those test verifications. So if you need a verification, I know that corrections sometimes need verification. So this is you certifying that they've completed the official practice test, that you understand that that it's not official scores, it's not a transcript, and that it's there if you need it. If you don't need it, then that's fine. You don't need it. But it's just one extra thing that's there for you. Any questions on how to put in a high school equivalency or a practice test?
Is this something that we need to go back and put in? So if we've had students that have already taken these tests, and it was before the rollover from GED into the VOS system, should we go back and enter those scores manually?
No, No. So what we're going to do, or well, okay, so what should have happened is we did an interface with GED, and they're re-looking at the interface with GED right now as well, because some of the scores doubled in there and we're not sure why they doubled. If they've doubled, it's not harming anything. It's just that there's another score in there. So they're looking at that right now as to why that's doubled. If you're not seeing scores in there, I'm not sure what happened. If a student is with us, okay, let's look at this fiscal year forward. So if a student is with us currently and they stop coming to us and they get their GED in the next 90 days, in the next 60 days, let's say that, the GED scores will integrate in because that's still a credential for us. If they get it on the 91st day after you have stopped taking attendance, that credential will not go in the system because that case will be closed and we do not get their credentials. That case is going to be closed. The integration with GED will not go in on a case that's not already in our system. It is a closed case, and therefore we don't have that student any longer, or it's a case that you can't match the information. So here's an important note for you. If you have a student whose information is in the system as Mike, I'm going to pick on Mike right now. His official name is Michael. He has put it into GED as Michael. And GED is trying to integrate with our system and they're trying to find Michael. It won't go in our system because they can't guarantee that Mike is Michael. So it needs to be the same name. That also goes true for when you're doing an application and you have like a Alexandria and she's going by Alex. Well, Alexandria is the name that's officially used, and I said this in the other training. It is her legal name. That's the name we need to use on her application. Those are the names that's going to find on all the records when we do the data. That's the name that we're going to find on her social. That's the name we're going to find on her GED records. So be very cognizant of that too. The integrated information, we're working still on integrating those old GED records. So if there's stuff that you're not finding, give us a little bit more time on that one. When we say, okay, this is it, they are all done, we think we've got them all in, then if you find a problem, you need to let us know. I think that was Lisa, right?
Yes, and
Okay.
I have one more question, is that sometimes we students from out of state, they've come up, they said, I've already taken 2 or 3 tests already, and now they're in our program. So would those scores come in? Okay, so
No, so
be,
those scores will not. So those scores are, we're only getting Alaska scores into our system, and that's a really good question, Lisa. So we get Alaska data from GED. We can't get other states' data. Those scores will have to come into our system manually. So if you have a student that comes up and says, hey, I tested in California and I took 3 of the tests and now I need 4, we're going to have to get those scores from GED, and then we're going to have to integrate those manually.
So Wendy, whenever somebody logs into their GED, it automatically brings up those scores. I don't know that we have to bring those over, but maybe if it's not a GED state, I don't know. We have had people that have tested before, and it brings it over automatically, but are you saying because it's integrating into the system, that's not going to work like that, like it does just for GED?
I don't believe so. So the reason why is we're getting the scores. So we're getting the past scores right now, and we're working on getting the historic scores into the system. For future records moving forward, we're going to get the scores nightly. So if they tested in California, or they tested in Maryland, or they tested somewhere else, we're not going to get their nightly scores. We're only going to get nightly scores moving forward. So if they tested somewhere else in another state, we don't have access to those nightly scores going into the system. That's why it's going to have to be manual.
Even if they change their,
That makes sense.
Oh, sorry, the two of you guys are at the same time. Sorry, Lisa, what was that?
and that's even if they change to our testing site, it's not going to automatically pull. this.
Right, because they're changing to our testing site. And so we have that information in GED Manager and we can see their historic data. However, they didn't test in Alaska, so we didn't get their real-time test on the day that they tested. So we didn't pull it that day. We're only pulling, moving forward, we're only pulling data day by day. So because they didn't test here, we didn't originally capture that data on the day that they tested. So we won't be able to access that in GED Manager, yes. So it'll have to be a manual import.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great question.
Hey, Wendy,
Yes.
if I have a student who tested on their own before they joined the program, should I manually enter in those scores into their account?
That's another great question. And the answer is yes. So they have to be a student with us in order for us to capture their data. So if they are if we have an open, can't talk today. If we have an open application with them, we're going to capture those real-time data. If not, then we're going to have to manually put that data in. Good question. Any other questions? Those are really good ones. Okay. So this person passed the GED. They passed today. So this is a really good example of an individual that we need to add credentials. So I'm going to say this. If they are a student on the day that they pass their last exam, the system will automatically add their credentials. If not, then you're going to have to manually add it. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, so because the student was part of AE and they have a record on the day that they pass their exam, which is today, I need to add a credential to their record. So it is right here under credentials. I would click the plus sign and create a credential. I have to add the LAWEA region. So for me, it's Southeast. I can't add another one, it's only Southeast. I have to add the office. Remember, the LAWEA is the Job Center section. It's Title 3, so that's always Title 3. So I added the Job Center, and then I can go down and add their credential. So what was the credential received? In this case, it was a secondary high school equivalency. And I don't know why it keeps doing that. Every time I click it, it goes back up to the top. I do not have to verify it. I don't have to scan it. I do have to say what date it was received. It happens to be today. There was no associated training activities with that. And so the only thing you have to do is add the LAWEA information, the credential that was received, which is secondary high school equivalency, and then the date. Are there questions on that?
Wendy, this is Gary from
Hi.
CUSD.
Hi,
This
Gary.
is where we can add those certificates of occupation that we teach, like OSHA 10, OSHA 30, our Neeser Carpentry 1, Neeser Carpentry Electric, and HVAC and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, so let's get through this one and then I'll walk you through
Okay.
another credential that we can add. So right now, we're just going to add the high school. So we took the last test today, we gained the credential today. So the way that we wrote the code is if they're bringing over the GED test today, they're also going to add a credential for secondary high school equivalency. Okay, so they're going to give that to you. They're going to put that in. They're going to make sure that that happens. You need to be checking the GED, making sure it's in there. If there's something wonky there, or if it's not adding the GED to that student for some reason, because we have a Mike and it's a Michael situation, it's not going to give you the GED. It's not going to give you the credential. So you need to manually put those in there. If it's an Alex and it's supposed to be Alexander, again, it can't match those up. So you're going to have to do everything manually. So in those situations, you're going to have to manually input the secondary high school equivalency with the LAWIA information and then the secondary high school equivalency and that date. All you have to do is then push save, and it will save that credential, and it will show you that this person gained their secondary high school equivalency today. That is a credential attainment on this record, and it will be then reported on the back end to the feds. Okay, any questions on that so far?
So if a student is, I have one student that is unable to join us, so that person still wants to do stuff on his own. And if that person passes and it's already been a year or so, they've been out full-time working, that person is no longer a student, and that score will come through GED, and it will be entered automatically, or maybe not.
No, it will not.
No. So I will be entering that if I see that.
No, you will not.
No.
So they have to be a current student for us to get a credential. And if they are not a current student in a current POP with a current application, you do not have to enter GED and you do not have to enter credentials. The reason being is we cannot report them federally. So we can't say that this student, say this case closed 3 months ago. If we put a credential in there, now we're reporting this federally as a credential attainment, and we can't pull that information in as a credential attainment on a case that has already been closed.
Is there going to be a spot somewhere, Wendy, that we can go, say this particular student, that we can just check and go, yes, they attained their GED? Maybe it's not considered a credential or gain for us, but something that marks for everybody else to see, yes, they already have their GED.
Sure, on their application when you put in their education history.
Well, like maybe like, let's say that they don't come back to us because they already have their GED. So
Okay.
how would the Nome Job Center know that they got the credential?
Because the Nome Job Center has to do their own application. They don't see our information at all. So if we get a credential attainment, they don't see this. The only people that see this is us. Yeah. Any other questions? So if this person got a credential, if they got their GED and then they left us, a year later they got their GED, we can't put credential attainment in there, but then they came back to us and they wanted additional classes. We still don't get a credential attainment, but when we go to do the new application, we would then put in their new education level in the new application. So in the application, remember when we take the POPs, we're seeing when we submit their information, we're seeing the different levels of what they are between the different POPs. That's why we do new applications. So we'll see the difference between what they were and what they were not between the time that we had them. We just won't get that credential attainment. Does that make sense?
Was hoping in the old system, like if we ran, let's say we wanted to see all the students in Brevet Mission, the old system couldn't say to us, this person got their GED. They would just give us a list of students. And I was hoping for something that would say, this person's earned their GED, you know, so when the attendance list runs, we go, okay, we don't need to contact these students about getting their high school equivalency.
Right. Did you look in the reports and see if it was a report that we could run?
I have not.
Okay, so look in the reports, and because that's not a report that's in my mind right now, I know there's a high school equivalency of some kind in there. I don't know. I don't think it's a voucher one. I think there's some kind of high school equivalency report in there, Pamela.
Will that pull up from their social security number if we're not entering it?
What do you mean?
If we're not marking a student that's not in our class at the moment, we know they got their high school diploma. If we're not marking that they have their high school degree somewhere on this paper or on this database, then how does the database know that they got their high school diploma equivalency?
Only if they're open with us.
Okay, so that's my question. So it's not gonna, it can't spit out and go, oh, John from 5 years ago ended up earning his high school diploma yesterday. Don't contact him.
Right. No, it doesn't. But however, you do have GED managers. So if you said, hey, there's John, whatever happened to John? You know what? We should look John up in GED manager and see if he ever did get his GED. I mean, you could always cross-reference with GED manager because you guys all do have GED manager.
I'm not aware that we can look up other people's students though, only if they pick us as their site.
You can look up your students. You have student view, yeah.
But only if they keep us as their site.
Yes, but then if you cannot find that student, I mean, we will always look up students for you. If you are like,
Okay.
hey, we don't know what happened to this student, Donna, can you look up John Doe and find out where he's at? Did he ever graduate? Because he seems to have dropped off our list. Yeah.
Hey, Wendy, this is Lisa. And
Hi, Lisa.
hey, so you mentioned that when they get their high school equivalency diploma, that it's reported federally.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, sometimes we have students that come in and they need verification that they are, and I think you probably already answered this question, that we're the only ones that can see their information, but maybe they're in a parole officer or someone else needs to know that they're working towards their GED. And so they're not able to see anything in here. So it's not reported to those entities or those staff. Okay.
No. So a person that, so you can always print, no, you can't print stuff up here. So if it's a probation officer and they need verification of any way, shape, or form as to what a student is doing, whether they've gotten their GED or not, whether they've gotten their high school equivalency or not, or where they're at in GED. Corrections, the person that Gary, the person in Gary's position, so Gary, I say the person in, so Gary, basically I'm throwing Gary under the bus without Gary knowing that Gary's being thrown under the bus.
No, that's fine. And that's what they should do. If they need verification, they should get a hold of me and we'll take care of
I
it.
don't want to put more work on Gary, but
all
basically
right.
it's Gary. They can contact Gary, and Gary, for corrections, Gary has access to Parchment where he can look up and do a verification. He doesn't have access to their transcripts. He can't print off their transcripts, but he can do a verification from for them from Parchment. Sorry, Gary, I just created more work for you. I apologize. I was trying not
No,
to. I was like,
that's
you
fine.
know, corrections, but no, sorry, Gary.
No, you're absolutely correct. And they should be coming to this position or me for that, but also for the ed coordinators that are on here that are DOC staff. I'm still working through that Parchment account process through Juno. So I don't have that done yet. And two, for those accounts or those individuals that I just have to verify a GED for their TV because of the act. I forget the act right now. But I've been using this system and it does have in there under their profiles, if I can't find it immediately on Parchment, what I have access to now, it does come up with information that they have a general education diploma or a high school diploma. That's it.
Thank you, Gary. Any other questions on that so far?
And that would go with our Juvenile Detention Center. Sometimes they've had students that they're kind of keeping track of. We'll go
So
through.
juvenile detention is a little bit different. Nobody in juvenile detention has the same probes that we do or Gary does. So Gary deals with prisons and the prison system. If they are a juvenile and they need that verification for probation officers, we have done verifications before in our office as well. And we will continue to do verifications. We won't do transcripts. That is, Parchment does all the transcripts. That's something that's taken off of us completely. But we understand that DOC still has to have those verifications for educational gains and all that good stuff. And so we get some from out of state, we get some from the federal prison system. So Donna and I still continue to do those. In state, those probation officers and stuff should always go to Gary because Gary has access and that's part of what he does. But if they need an official verification, Donna will take care of that official verification. Not a transcript has to be ordered, but verification for probation or parole, we continue to do that.
And to share too, for those that are juvenile below 16, 17 that come to us and have been in school or enrolled in a local school, the ed coordinators work with them and we've been able to help them out and get their high school diploma for those last few little bit that they have to get.
Any other questions? Okay, what Gary asked about was other credentials that may be obtained, and this is a really good for anybody who is working with students that in IT situations or in situations where they're working through their high school equivalency and you're working with them to also attain another credential that's going to help them with their workforce, that's going to help them with that sustainable employment. What does that look like? We get those credentials in here as well because that could be credential attainment as well. So it's the same process. We're going to create a credential, and it really needs to be one of the credentials that are listed on here. The steps for the LAWIA are the exact same, and I apologize, it's going to jump back and forth, and I'm not sure why it does that. Every time it jumps back down. So I'm still in Southeast. I'm still going to go to the Juneau Job Center. or whatever job center is next to you. And then what is the credential that they've received? Is it their associate's degree? Is it a bachelor's degree? Is it an occupational skills license or a certificate? Is it an other recognized diploma, degree, or certificate from there? Is it a graduate or postgraduate degree or an occupational certificate? So occupational skills versus occupational certificate. If you're working with them, they would know the difference. If you're working with an entity that's putting on these, like the NCCR,
ECR.
is it NCCR?
ER.
ER. Okay, I'm pretty sure they're an occupational certificate versus an occupational skills certificate. Do you know, Gary? Is Jackie on? Does Jackie know? I think.
I would say it's, when I first read this, I'm thinking it's an occupational skills certificate.
It could be a skills because they're
It's not
learning
a
the skills.
full- Yeah, because they'll still have to be signed off by the employer. In other words, I recognize
Is
your
that,
certificate,
Mhm.
but you need to work with me and show that you can still do this stuff. And
is
then,
that like getting a flagger's license?
Nope.
yeah,
Well,
It's
it
a
could be. I
certification.
mean, it is a certification, so that would be falling under an occupational certification, or it could be an occupational skills certification. So it really is, what is the people that are training them? What is it under? So I would, if they're getting a certification, if they're getting a skills license, I would definitely look at their certification, or I would talk to the people that are giving it to them to kind of verify which one is it. But let's talk about NCCER. Let's call it an occupational skills certificate. For here, it might be an occupational certificate. It could be one or the other. So the NCCER is basically a cluster of classes around construction, and you learn an array of different skills that gives you an opportunity to kind of test out the water in construction and see if you like construction at all, and kind of see where your forte is. So they teach you a little bit of electrical. They teach you a little bit of general construction. They teach you a little bit of, gosh, it's all kinds of them. So there's like 5 different realms.
there's several.
Several.
I mean, we're talking like 2 pages.
And it's
Boiler
based on a
operator.
curriculum.
Yeah.
And so they have to go through the curriculum. They have to pass it. I mean, it is certified nationally. I mean, it's a really good program if you know anybody who is really interested in construction and they just don't know what they want to do. Here in Juneau, we have the Construction Academy. I'm pretty sure there's a Construction Academy in Anchorage. I think they do it in Fairbanks. But the occupational skills license, so occupational skills certificate. So it could be an other certificate too. What is that other certificate? So what is the certificate that they're getting? NCCER certificate. Oops, I can't spell, sorry about that. And then you do not have to verify it for us. You can upload it so that if they ever came back to you, you have it in there. If the job center ever reached out to you and said, hey, I noticed you work with this individual, you could say, yeah, I have their certificate, whatever you need it, you have it. When was the certificate achieved? And then you can put it into a training activity record, but that's not for us really. So just to save it. Yes.
So right there where it says scan,
Yes,
we truly scan it in so that there'll be a permanent record on their profile?
on ours, yes, not on theirs, on
What?
ours.
Yeah, DOLs.
No, on
Oh.
ours. This is ours. This is only adult ed. So
Oh.
if you wanted to, and I think, Gary, what we've talked about before is scanning it to their permanent record. And I've
Right.
already sent that information to DOL and how the ECs could potentially help with that, or how you could help with that, or what we could potentially do. But for this particular area, this is only on our side. So anything we do here is on adult ed, and nobody sees it but adult ed.
Okay.
Yeah. So then it's going to show you that we have 2 credentials in this individual's profile. Okay.
Nice.
So they could have achieved a credential while they're waiting to finish their high school equivalency. So they could have achieved the NCC ER in one pop. Their case could have closed. We could have opened them, and they could have achieved their high school equivalency in their second pop, and you could have gotten to credential attainment. Does that make sense?
So on the date received, there is no problem of saying they say they earned that particular certificate 5 years ago. Could we put that in, or is that only while they're in our program?
Only while they're in your program. So only while they're in this particular pop.
Okay,
So when that's a really good question. That was Lisa again, right?
sorry.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to make sure who I'm addressing. So when we're talking about credential attainment, we're talking about reporting these federally, and it has to be obtained in the POP that we're talking about. If we have these, say we helped these guys a year ago, or helped this person a year ago, and we know that they got this occupational skill certificate last year, and we were like, oh, well, we should have put it on their profile last year. It's too late now. We cannot go back and do that now, because we're federally reporting that they obtained a credential while they were open with us and we were working with them. So just be very careful with that. This is our credential attainment time. And if you're reporting that you got it later or earlier, then we need to make sure that we're reporting it federally during our time. Yeah, that's a good question, Lisa.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So just to wrap my head around this clearly, for our federal reporting, I know you like to see, or in the past, you'd like to see that the people in our programs have got high school or GEDs, and then you ask for me, what is their post-secondary attainment? That NESER is their post-secondary attainment, and we need to put that in right away so that the feds know that, yes, they got their GED and they went to post-secondary, correct?
Well, yeah, in the past, I asked for it, and in the future, I won't. It'll be in here, and you won't have to report that to me because you're putting it in here.
But
It's
our ed
technically not
coordinators
post.
put this in there.
What's that?
But our ed coordinators do need to put those.
Yes, everybody needs to be putting those in there. If you know about it, it needs to go in here so that we can federally report it. The more that we can put in here that we helped achieve these credentials, the measurable skill gains, the outcomes that we need, the better off it's going to be for us moving forward, because we're showing federally the outcomes that we need to the feds. We weren't able to do this in the past. Now moving forward, we're able to, we have the space to do it. We have the ability to report what we need to report. These aren't their credentials aren't post-secondary. These are credentials. So these are post-secondary measures. I think it's Monday. Yes. On Monday's training, we're going to talk about measurable skill gains, and that's this section up here. What goes in there and how do we report measurable skill gains, which is different than credentials. So this is just credentials and any credentials that we received during this training, including, is it an IET situation where you were also working with workforce? If that is the case, this is important. If you are in an IET situation and you are working with workforce during that time, you need to go up and you need to give yourself another participation. So going back up, and I know I'm going to confuse you guys here, but these activities, you have one, you've always given yourself that very first AE1. Do not ever close that one. The system will close that one, but you need to create a second one in the same way you created that first one that will give you the IET. So I'm going to create an IET right now because I'm working through adult ed. I'm working through a credential attainment in whatever my credential attainment is, and I'm doing a true IET. So it's my customer group and my office, just like before. My activity code right here, remember that's always AE1 when we're doing our original application. In this case, we've got 4 different sets. You do not need another AE1, that's already done. But you can do an AE4 or an AE3. AE3 is IELCE, but an AE4 is that IET that will show that this is an IET. When the case closed, this will close too. I know there's going to be questions here. What is the projected end date for that IET only? Not the whole case, just the IET. Moving on to the next one. Oh, did I not enter it in a month, day, year? Looks like a month, day, year. Okay, it does not look a beginning date. I didn't put in a beginning date. Actual begin date. Projected end date for the IET. The provider information is the same because it's still going to be you. Come on, provider. I'm going to click next, and then I'm going to click next, and I'm going to leave that open. Okay, now I know I just confused a lot of you guys. We went over this before in the initial training, that there's more than just the AE1. The AE1 stays open until it's closed. If you leave the IET open, it will close along with it. Now I have 2 services. I have an IET and I have an AE1. Now questions. Do I need a training only on activities and that? And what those are? Okay, I see a nod of the head. Okay, I will tack that on to the end so that we can go over what those are and we'll go through those because I know I probably just confused you guys. Did I? Yes. Pamela, I love seeing you because I know I get like true emotions when you're like, yes, please teach me that. Linda, did you have a question?
So I have some continuing ed credit. Would that count as, if we're offering a continuing ed credit, would that count as an IET?
Is it an IET? Is it got the 3 components of an IET?
Well, the student is doing it while they are registered in our program. And
Does it have the workforce development side of it?
yeah, because it's English for
It could
healthcare
be.
workplace, but they might not be employed there yet, but it's a future plan. So I think it counts. And so I think I would actually put that student and open up that.
Okay, yeah, definitely. If it's a true IET and it has the 3 components, then yeah, definitely.
What's the third component again?
It has to have the workforce services and it has to have the workforce development side of it. So you have to be working on that workforce development, getting them, it could be the language part of it, it could be the job services, and then it has to be the actual employment side.
Yeah,
Which
that-
education is that actual employment side too. So yeah.
Yeah, it'd be good if you went over, when you went over activities, to include what specific, examples of some IEPs.
Yeah, I just, when I went through that very quickly, I just realized that that needs to be a training all to itself, and going over what those 4 activities actually are, when we open them, when we close them, and that we never ever close the AA one. So I'm going to tack that onto the end. I know we need to do the case notes and redo that one, so we'll do that one as well. So we'll make sure we get both of those trainings in there in the December. We're going to spend a lot of time together, It's all good. Okay, so we've got no time left, and so I want to make sure that I respect your guys' time. If you have any additional questions about the credentials, putting in the credentials or the high school equivalency, please let Donna and I know. I will get this email along with the email on the reports, I get this training along with the email, along with the training on the reports up this afternoon. It should be ready to go by Monday. You guys have a fantastic Friday and a fantastic weekend, and we will see you on Monday when we're going over measurable skill gains.
Thank you so much, Wendy. Appreciate
Yeah,
you.
definitely.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.